Hey folks, in this interview, I'm sitting down with my good friend, Mr. Tim Engle. We're going to be talking about 3 ways that you can improve your photography with DIY. This is TWiP. Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of This Week in Photo. This is an interview with my friend, Mr. Tim Engle. Tim and I are going to talk DIY and how you can get amazing commercial fashion photographer results just by making a trip to Home Depot. Tim Engle, how's it going, man? What are you doing over there?
Frederick, it's good to see you again, my friend.
I know. It's a long time no see, long time no talk.
I know. You talk about me, but not with me.
Well, in a good way. You know, I'm always saying good things about Tim Engle.
All right.
Yeah. So cool, man. So you and I, I've seen you at work. I've seen you do your thing in the studio and, you know, on location even. And there's always a high degree of, like we call you the MacGyver of photography, right? Because like you make it work, but you still get the mission accomplished with whatever by any means necessary, right? So how did you get to that level? Like how did you get to the? Because you're as the years go by, you're becoming more and more of the photographer. Doesn't necessarily need. Though you probably would crush it with it, but you don't necessarily need pro photo gear and all this other magic stuff in order to create stunning images. Is that just sort of a mindset, or is it just because you're cheap, Tim?
I think, all of it. And it's an evolution. So to start with, I have 4 kids, and they get shoes before I get a light.
Yeah.
So I think lighting style developed out of a necessity and a not having a lot of funds to buy stuff. I mean, my very first, I think, kind of thing I used that was considered DIY or, do it yourself is that I had a shop light, and my daughter was probably like 6 or 7, my oldest now. And we're in the garage putting a shop light up, and she's holding it, and I had plugged it in, and the light that it cast on her was phenomenal. And so that was my first thing, like, wait a minute, this could be used as a light. So this is just a Home Depot shop light. It's, a $12 fixture with a $3 bulb. So I took those and mounted them at that time to just 2 poles that I used clamps just to hold them in place. And I started doing some portraits with it. And wow, it turned out that the light was amazing with that stuff. Yeah. And that evolved to flashlights. When flashlights switched over to LED, in the old days we had the mag lights, and those were the kind of the warm bulb that had a funny pattern to them. And when the LEDs happened, they put out this very nice color light that was very smooth. And that was my next foray. I'm like, hey, this could be a fill light. So all these things just kind of like happened over time. And then I realized when I had a chance to work with higher end lights that I wasn't necessarily getting what I wanted out of those expensive lights. And I kind of reverted back to my shop lights, my flashlights, my mirrors, those kind of things that didn't cost me a ton. It just over time, it just kept rolling.
I love that. And that's important, right? I mean, it's, you could probably, like I was saying in the beginning, you can work magic with expensive light, but in the end they're photons, right? And we've done shows on This Week in Photo where we talk about that, and I want to get your thoughts on this. The consensus about using a Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever type gear, shop lights, that sort of thing, found items, versus using purpose-built photography, lighting, etc. equipment seems, and you correct me if I'm wrong, you're the expert, it seems to come down to not quality of the image, but quality of the gear and longevity of the gear. Like a pro photo kit, I don't own one, but they tell me they're very well made and going to last you for years and years and years. They have a very accurate color temperature, repeatable results, all that stuff. On the Home Depot or the DIY side of it, how does that factor in? Are you seeing, does it matter? Because you're like, okay, if it breaks, it was $10. I'm gonna go buy another one.
Well, yeah, and it matters on the style or the scale of the shoot. So if I have a big commercial shoot that's going to require the super solid color temperature, and that even has changed over the years because of digital. In the days of film, that color temperature played way more into it. Now with the digital, we can adjust color temperature after the fact. And I haven't had a problem with like matching that stuff in years. I'll just shoot with my color checker in the very beginning and even at the ends and just make sure that I'm where I want to be. Mm-hmm. But for the bigger projects, I'll rent the stuff that I need. If I have to shoot at a high rate with strobes where I'm overpowering the sun, sure, I'm going to rent the pro photos because that's what they can do. I can shoot, much faster and more efficiently that way. So it's just a matter of what's the job, the equipment for the right equipment for the right job.
Yeah. Yeah. So am I hearing you correct in saying that color temperature and color accuracy, to put a finer point on it, isn't that critical because you're checking color with a color meter before you even go into the shoot. So the light can be putting out. It doesn't have to be consistent because you're going to make it consistent. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah. For what if I was going to do a high-end clothing company, and I had to do stuff over a series of days, I might be more into that consistent color temperature out of, let's say, a pro photo. But again, I'm also still doing the color checker, not necessarily a color meter, but like the color passport. Mm-hmm. In the beginning of the shot and the end of the shot, and even sometimes in the middle, if we change, anything around, I'll just recheck that stuff just so I have a color chart to reference.
Just put a color chart in a scene so that you can go back and say this is black, this is white, and everything else sort of locks in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, which is recommended, I guess. That's recommended for even if you're using pro photo or whatever lights, is to especially if you're shooting for a commercial client where this red needs to be that particular red. You want it locked in as much as possible. So Tim, speaking of like shooting with clients, how does that work? Right? Because we all know as photographers and artists, etc., that it's the end result that matters, and that when you're shooting and building a shot, no one at the end of it, unless they're another nerd photographer, is going to look at it and say, "Oh, wait, that specular highlight is done with a mirror," and this. No one cares how the sausage was made, except if you have a client on set with you. Right. So if you have a client on set with you, do you feel comfortable still using like off the rack sort of, MacGyver type setups, or would you go through the theater of having pro photo gear so that they can justify that big 7-figure check they're writing
you? Years ago, I might have been more concerned about the show of the shoot.
Mm-hmm. The theater.
The theater. So I think over time, it's become less and less. I mean, they're hiring me because of the images that I put out. And tethering, I think, helps because they're seeing that the images that I'm putting out with that stuff is what they want. So years ago when I didn't tether, I might have had a Polaroid. It was different. But now having it come across to the computer or the iPad or both with clients, they're happy with what I'm producing. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean that I don't go strobes. I mean, it still is absolutely about what I'm trying to say. I mean, I guess a painter uses different paintbrushes to, portray on the canvas what they want. I think light's the same way. We use different sources or different styles of light to portray what we want to the viewer.
Yeah.
And so it's just more tools in the bag. I mean, and I've switched over to, for my strobes, to the Photex strobes. And those have been dead on color. They're good on speed. They're good on power. I mean, I can beat the sun, easily. So it's just the right tool for the right job.
Yeah, no, for sure. So for people that are interested in sort of diving into this sort of world of DIY and getting their feet wet and maybe saving a couple dollars or a couple $1,000.
Yeah.
Give me some tips. Give us some tips on where they should get started. And I know the next question would be, well, what kind of photography are they doing? Let's assume that they're doing portraiture or commercial type work or something.
I mean, the first thing I think you do is go walk your aisles of Costco. Mm-hmm. Costco's always got some crazy flashlight or LED that's on sale. And start with that. And then just take. And I always tell people, take one light. If it's going to be an LED, let's say it's a little LED floodlight, take one light and try it, on them. Try it bounced off a wall. Try it behind them. Try it, through a window. So just try it in different ways and see what that light does. I think people they kind of like get themselves into a corner where they'll get a bunch of lights and try and do things. And they're like, I don't know how to solve this shadow over here because I'm not sure what's doing it. Well, if you start with one light, you can see what the shadows are doing. You can see how it's playing, and you can adjust and get the image that you want.
Yeah. And then the next thing would be, what about the idea of stands and tripods and that sort of thing? Are you investing money in that stuff, or is that also DIY from your standpoint?
I use actually IV poles for the shop lights that I got from eBay. and they're kind of perfect. I put an eyelid on the end of the shop light, and they reel on my studio, and I can raise and lower them. And for my portrait work, I don't really need them to be mounted on C-stands. It works fine with IV poles. And I just make sure that I sandbag them when I'm in the right spot, so they don't slip. And I also put, this is a hard lesson. I put bungees around the whole thing because I had a scenario where I didn't, and the bulb slipped out, fell on the ground, and a fluorescent tube hitting the ground is never a fun cleanup.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, any kind of gear, you never want gear and gravity and hard surfaces. Not a good.
No. So especially if a client's around, I make sure everything's like tied off, taped off, bungeed off, secured.
Yeah. All right. Last question on DIY stuff. What about reflectors? Because I've seen you use giant mirrors, small mirrors, foam board, all kinds of stuff. What are your suggestions for folks for reflectors?
Back to Home Depot. Home Depot sells over in the insulation department these massive sheets that one side is shiny. And I cut those and I tape them off, because if you cut them and just leave them open, it's a mess. So I cut them, I tape them off, and I use those as my shiny boards. And actually, I really like what they do on light. They look like kind of like pitted silver, and it's a very good reflector. Or I use them in the large sheets in the studio. And those are, I think, maybe are in the range of $15 to $18 a sheet. I'm not going to stress whether they get destroyed or hurt or beat up or stepped on. And then IKEA is another great source for mirrors. I picked up multiple mirrors from IKEA. I have one that actually was a garage sale. It was $15 that rotates. And I use that back in. And I've been in scenarios where I'll put a diffusion panel up, shine the mirror through that, and that's the light source on the person. You have to be super careful with mirrors that whoever you're using understands what you're doing with it, and that they're not looking straight into it. I don't have any interest in, causing retinal damage on shoots.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Wow, very cool, man. See, I love that. I love it. If you're in the Sacramento area and you can get an invite, try to sit in on one of Tim's shoots, because it's very, very educational. Very educational.
I always feel bad because people come expecting this grand setup and this design, and I'm doing such simple stuff, but it just...
Yeah, but the work speaks for itself, though. Right?
Thanks.
All right, so let's switch gears just to wrap this up. I know you recently were down and were over in Palm Springs for the Palm Springs Photo Festival, right?
Yep.
How did that go?
So that was my first. So backing up, I have spent the last 14 years as a track coach and football coach, which means my days are done by 3 o'clock a lot of times. And I've done well, and I've gotten the work that I like out of Sacramento, and I've managed to raise a family doing it. So basically, about a week ago was, for the most part, my last track meet, most likely ever. My son has graduated from school and moving on, so my coaching days are kind of over, which is great. I'm happy for that. It's also sad to see it go. But what that meant was that I wanted to put my work out and get, I guess, a measure stick to see how it stacked up against stuff around the country.
Yeah.
I've never put my portfolio out for the most part, other than locally. So the chance to go to the Palm Springs Photo Festival and do reviews with people from Wired Magazine, from Entertainment Weekly, Vanity Fair, people who absolutely have phenomenal eyes, was a chance that I really wanted to take. And I'll tell you, in multiple ways, it was one of the best moves I could have done right now.
Really? Was it eye-opening? Or did you leave with your ego pumped up or crushed?
And I wanted to go into it with either. I mean, I would love to have somebody tear me apart and say, do this, as long as I could get a direction, and it was obviously constructive. I mean, but I was amazed at how positive everybody was with the stuff I've been producing. And flat out said that it was already on a scale or a level that they felt was, big time.
I could have told you that, man. I could have told
you. But it's like, it's always, people around here always say, oh, you have nice images. Well, that's fine. Thank you. I appreciate it. But it's like, I want to see, when the movers and shakers in the world of photography, give you validation. It means a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even the process of selecting and printing my portfolio, that was very beneficial. I've never most of my stuff, I'd say 95% of my stuff goes straight to digital or magazine.
Mm-hmm.
So for me to go back and select and look at a body of work, you're trying to basically get it down to, let's just say, maximum of 24 images that represents you. And it's like, that's hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I started with 500 images. I got down to 180. I got down to 40. And then I sent that 40 out to various people to get their opinion who I trusted, and then got it down to my 24. And then printing those and looking at them and critiquing yourself, knowing that, high-level eyeballs are going to be on this stuff, you look at your stuff differently. And there's things that I thought to myself I like and I don't like about my own work. And so it was very therapeutic from that standpoint. So it was absolutely a week well spent down there.
That was really cool. That was really cool. Do you think you'll be going back? Is this going to be a regular occurrence for Tim Engle?
I think so, and I think that you should go and teach.
I would love to go there. In fact, I was there several years ago. Jeff Dunas, who's the organizer of the conference and the creator of the conference, invited me over, and I was giving you a little story about that. The life-changing nature of the Palm Springs Photo Festival. I went there, and one of the people sitting in the audience was some people from Brooks Institute, and we started a dialogue after that, and ultimately became chairman of the board for Brooks.
There you go.
And it never would have happened had it not been for Jeff Dunas and the Palm Springs Photo Festival. So,
well, I think we need to get a group of TWiP people, and we'll go next year.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's right there. It's like what's the flight? 45 minutes?
I drove.
Oh, you drove?
Yeah. So here's what I did: is I actually rented an Airbnb midweek that was amazing visually, and I set up a shoot on my own just at this house. So I had a makeup artist and a model I got brought in, and I just took advantage. And the other really cool thing about the festival, all of these gear manufacturers from Sony to Canon to Fuji will let you take and try gear over, let's say, a day or 2 day period. And so I was able to take a Fuji GFX, which I'd been looking at, and shoot with it for basically a day and a half. And that was, I could go into that, but that was pretty cool. I mean, I'm not a mirrorless guy.
Are you now no longer a Nikon guy? Or
I'm a Nikon guy for right now, so it's still there. We're still
for right now. There's a crack in the armor.
And if I look at the idea of new gear, it has to be a quantum leap in what I'm doing. I can't just spend money just because it's a cool piece of tech. It has to do something greater than I already have.
Yeah.
And that definitely gets into that, that medium format sensor and the tonal range that I'm getting out of it. I mean, the files are pretty stunning. Definitely approaches kind of like a quantum jump in what I'm producing.
Oh, really? So the Superior. What are you shooting now as your daily driver?
So Nikon D4 has been my camera that I've had forever, and it's I've already had it refurbished once because I wore out the shutter.
See?
And then
it's awesome.
and then I have and I'm Sigma glass, and I'm shooting the 810 a bunch of the time. And my 810, I actually had sent that in for work. And it was really strange. I was not happy with the images out of the 810. I sent it in for refurbishing. It came back, and I don't know what magic they did, but I'm kind of amazed by the files I'm getting out of it right now.
Really? Have you been sort of seduced by the Nikon mirrorless, the Z series at all?
The Nikon mirrorless is interesting. All the things I'm reading about the Z6 seem to be what I'm into, where it would fall. I don't need a massive, I got big megapixels right now with an 810.
Yeah, that's true.
That's
a good segue, because you're going to be speaking at Troy Miller's F64, the Troy Miller or the F64 and the TWiP conference that we're putting together this week in photo. Mm-hmm. And Troy Miller, he's having an illicit affair with his Z series Nikon camera.
Right.
So you could technically say he's cheating on his wife with his camera. So exactly. You'll have a chance to play with those cameras when you're down there. Are you gonna bug him to see if you can't grab one for a day?
Oh, for sure. And I might have one by then. Who knows? We'll see.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, why not?
I mean, what are we at? A few months, so a lot can change between now and then. Or I could have a Fuji GFX in my hand. I don't know.
Oh, this will be interesting. So speaking of F64, what are you going to be teaching down there? Because you're one of our instructors.
So I want to get into, I call it smoke and mirrors, but I think sometimes you can create these images that have the illusion of this big production for not a lot of money and not a lot of production.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to start there. I want to get into some working with models and posing, and then combining the two elements together so that it's. And the one thing I took away even from last week is it's important for people to not only get some education and some discussion, but to shoot and push the button. I think to stand around and talk about it's one thing. So I'm really looking forward to having people push the button, to talking about why we push the button, how we push it, what we're looking for, what we got out of it, what we liked about what we got, what we didn't like. So really heavy participation from the attendees in what I want to do.
Love it. Love it. Can't wait. I'll be there. I'll
All
be
right.
there with bells on, heckling you from the back of the crowd. So just,
You'll be shooting right next to
I
us.
will. I can't wait. You're an excellent teacher. So yeah, that should be a good time. Cool, man. Any parting shots you want to leave for folks about DIY or anything you got coming up you want people to know about?
I think, my parting shots are always get out and push the button, because nothing happens if you don't push the button.
That's right. Yeah. It's like, at prom, I don't know if you were like me, but I was a shy kid at prom. If you don't ask a girl to dance, it's never going to happen. So you got to.
Well, and even in Palm Springs, it's like I feel like the one thing that came home was you could be the greatest photographer in the world, but if nobody knows you exist, you suck.
He's right. Yeah, if a tree falls in the forest and doesn't make a sound, or does it make a sound if no one sees it or hears it?
Right.
Yeah, arguably it doesn't. It falls silent because there's nothing to rattle the eardrums.
Yep.
Cool, man. All right. Well, thank you for coming on, man. It's always it's always a pleasure. We got to get together up in Sacramento and have a lunch at some point really soon.
Oh, and then June 9th is the Preston Castle Photo Day again.
Oh, yeah. Tell us about that real quick.
Yeah, so Preston Castle, considered one of the most haunted locations in California, if not the country. We put together 3 times a year photo day where people can bring in props and models and actually put a tripod down, because if you go there on your own and do a tour, you can't stop and shoot. So if you've not seen the location, look up Preston Castle, look at the images, and I bring models out to be photographed. I have I'm setting up a set of vintage wardrobe for the models to kind of go with the theme. And so it's definitely for, I think, what are we at, $40 for, a few hours of shooting is pretty worth it.
All right. Well, send me those dates over. I'll put those in the blog post so we can promote that. Yeah, it is. Yep. It's pretty creepy up there. It's
You've been there.
Yeah. I mean, with you. It's crazy. Yeah, it's a crazy, creepy place. And, if you're afraid of ghosts, you'll be surrounded by a bunch of people. So, unless it's a ghost like The Grudge that leaves with you, you should be okay.
That's right.
Well, cool. Tim Engle. What's your URL if people want to go check out your website?
So we're at Engle Photo, so ENGLEPHOTO.com.
All right. Tim Engle.
And Engle Photo on Instagram.
Engle Photo on Instagram?
Yes.
All right. Cool, man. All right. Thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate
Good to see you.
All right. Take care. This is TWiP.